So I'd like to give you a little bit more insight into my makerspace. As you should already know, going through the rest of my website, that you see that my target audience are high school students taking an elective class in which they want a job in the health industry, and that could be to be a dietitian, to be a neurologist, to be optometrist, be a psychiatrist, whatever it is, a veterinarian, whatever their heart's desires. I want to create a makerspace to help them thrive. But before I can do that, I need to tell you a little bit more about what a makerspace is. So here I have 5 different definitions, and in those definitions, some of them are like from websites, and then others are like from somebody famous within, education, like Laura Fleming. So makerspaces.com considers a makerspace like a workspace inside of a school, library, or like private facility, whereas other definitions will say that it's a place in general, because you can make a makerspace outside of the school or classroom environment. I mean, you can even go to the park with your students and all. Laura Fleming says that a makerspace is like a metaphor for a unique learning environment that encourages tinkering, play, and open-ended exploration. So especially doing that at a park or a public facility would be very useful. And then one part of calling graves that I like is where you make meaning in quotation marks, because it's more than just knowing facts and applying knowledge and like using technology, but it's actually understanding the reasons and the meaning behind what you're learning, which is why I'm focusing on the interests of the students and not quite a specific career in mind. It's what they want to do. And then I put the Wikipedia site down there at the bottom because everybody wants to know what Wikipedia has to say. So you can read a little bit more about that, about what they consider a makerspace to be. Here's just 3 examples of equipment that my students can use. So they can use 3D printers, they can use laser cutting technology, and even learn how to use an ultrasound. And these are ones that my students can like fundraise for within their class. And a lot of people are like, well, how would we get our hands on an ultrasound piece of technology? Well, I'm going to encourage like volunteer opportunities, or even like a little field trip where my students can actually like go to a hospital, pre-approved of course, and work with the professionals as they learn like the ins and outs of some basic technology. And then workshops. I find workshops to be a very important part of makerspaces, especially do it yourself. Like you give them stuff and they'll find something to do. Now, when I say that, I do want to give them a little bit of like insight or even examples. Like you'll see in a little bit about a case study about different nurses and things that they do when they're out of supplies. How can they still do their job without the specific tools that they need, or electronics or technology that they need. And then another workshop would be learning about like the different health professionals in your area or where you want to go, and learn about breakthroughs that they've made. And this could include like my students going to a TED Talk, or even trying to get a professional to do a talk at this school. One that I did when I was in high school was purifying water. And you're like, well, how is that the health industry? Well, that we use water every day, and we understand what happens when you're not drinking clean and safe water. And that could even go for students who, let's say, want to be in the Peace Corps or work overseas. Another workshop would be transforming our libraries, because people say that books are becoming obsolete. So why don't we add a little bit of technology or transform our library to create more workshops? Now the next one, I wrote CPR with humans and animals. And you're like, well, what's the difference? Well, a lot of students, they do want to become veterinarians or work with animals or work at a zoo. So understanding the differences in CPR is very important, and even having like the little, not just the human dummies, but also like the animal ones as well can be very important. And then I wrote practice with health-related technology that also means kind of like the field trips going to the hospitals. So here I have like 3 different case studies that you can look at. So the maker nurse, and that kind of goes with the University of Texas, Makerspace Hospital. They both actually collaborate with one another, in which nurses can utilize the space and tools and even simple things like cardboard, paper, and pen to make things not only cheaper for the hospital, but also more convenient and what to do if technology fails. And then I found a case study about high school students thriving with makerspaces. So a few different programs that actually use makerspace already in the real world is like MIT. I don't even have to explain what that is. They're in like the leader of technology, but I was actually surprised to see that they actually have their own makerspace because they definitely focus on that hands-on learning. The University of Texas Medical Group at Galveston kind of has to go with that case study that I was talking about with their nurses coming through with breakthroughs trying to save money. And the Makerspace in the Cloud was a really cool program that you should definitely look up online to learn a little bit more about the program, but also how they're helping nurses, hospitals, and even high school students. So as a teacher, I'm supposed to, prepare my students for college, as well as providing them the resources and tools for their future education. So if I can show them a little bit how to fundraise, or supporting them in fundraising for supplies and technology, or even getting them to start a club in which they can fundraise and be able to bring that technology to the school for not only their class, but for future years of the same class would be really beneficial to their learning. They can sign petitions and get in touch with doctors or veterinarians to donate items. And then with the previous resources that I mentioned, getting in touch with other Makerspace programs, not only to get like their ideas, but also some of their resources or access to their workshops, or have somebody from those programs come and help my students learn a little bit more. And then we are the age of technology, so of course social media pages to spread awareness about their club and what they hope to do within the club. And lastly, you can look a little bit more about these websites. I kept the website portion of the references in bold so you can kind of see that a little bit more, and hopefully you try to visit them. Thank you for listening to this.